What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy. Today we are going to be talking about something super awesome that has recently been introduced with the new faceplant update, which are the Lfo tables. Now, this isn't something that is a brand new concept, but I think as far as software, it's one of the first. It comes from, I believe, like a modular kit or modular piece to where you can actually use a wavetable as an LFO. So if you look over here on the left, you can see that it's just firing from left to right, and even though you can change the shape, you can't actually like change it or manipulate the shape itself or make it morph into something different without doing more complex modulation. However, with this in particular, you can actually change from all the way from 0 or 1 to 256 different frames, and that means that if you make any wavetables outside of or in the regular wavetable maker of faceplant or anything else, then you can actually use these to serve as a source of modulation. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this is that if you have something that is maybe kind of peaky and has a lot of points in this, then you can actually use the smooth knob right here to kind of mellow everything out and make the wavetable more usable, because sometimes when you have a lot of harmonics, it gets like super jagged and you don't really want to have all of that crazy like complex movement. So this is amazing because if we take something like this, even as simple as say a notch here, then you can hear the movement pretty prominently. But if I don't like the shape, then I can actually transform this and move this in between something different. Now, what's also really cool is that by nature, faceplant allows you to have a couple of different options that I also want to discuss. So we can pretty much pull up any kind of wavetable. This one looks a little bit smoother, so I'm going to go with that one instead. But if we drag the modulation source over here, then we can, for one, automate the frame, or modulate the frame rather. I'm going to set this to smooth, so that way you can see that it'll kind of morph back and forth between this, and I love that there's a visual representation of this. You can also modulate the speed of this if you wanted to, which typically that's what we used to do with things like modulating a random with LFO. And the reason why you would do that in the first place is because if you want a mix of randomness along with something that follows a straight curve, then that's a great way to do that. The problem with that, though, is it doesn't necessarily change the shape of what's happening. It only changes the speed about what's happening. But with the new update, there's actually a third parameter that we can use, which is now the trigger. And by doing so, we can actually change this from being modulated to not only the frame or the speed, but also by this here, to where whenever this random goes off, maybe we can set this to smooth. This is actually just going to trigger at whatever speed you set that at. So what that means is that if this moves really fast, then it will restart this from the beginning several times faster. And with all these different aspects of that, you can get into some pretty crazy modulation sources. And so I can just do a quick demonstration here since we've already got a race pulled up. Now, typically speaking, I usually don't actually modulate this here. I actually leave it the way that it is because once it's there, I usually like to just keep that where it's at. So let's go ahead and add a limiter. And now what I'm going to do is grab one of my favorite things, which is a slice EQ. And we are going to very quickly make a custom filter here. So this one's going to be like that. We're going to move this here. We're going to set this one like this and pull this one down. So now we've got a custom shape. And then my favorite feature about faceplant actually is this pretty much, but we can grab this here and move this up. We can move this down. We can also move this down, so that way these are moving together, and then we can move this up. And now you can see we've got a complex filter that's kind of doing its own thing. Not only that, but we can duplicate this by holding Option, and then what we're going to do is open this back up, and grab this here, and we're also going to modulate the gain by going like this on 2, 5, and 6. So now all of these are moving together. And whenever we play this, let's go ahead and move all of these into time, maybe at a little bit of a slower rate. Cool. Then we can actually use this here, and we're going to set this up to modulate with the offset. you can see that this will tell you where your modulation is going. But that's kind of the theme about Faceplant and why this is so easy and why I advocate it so much, just because of how easy it is to start modulating all different kinds of things quickly around itself. So now this filter is pretty much going completely nuts, and we can add a little bit more saturation over that to get something interesting. And let's see what that sounds like. Cool, let's go ahead and grab another one here, and I'm going to, doesn't really matter, but let's just say that we're going to grab this one and we're going to set that here. And now we should have something that should be nice and morphing. But again, let's say I wanted to change this up. Well, I could just double click off of this and get rid of the trigger modulation, and instead go into this random, and I'm going to set this one here to go up, and then I'm going to set this one to go down. And then as I pull this up, these are going to be pit against each other because they're the same wavetable. Or I can do something different where I can pull up a different wavetable that I've made at some point in time, make sure that it's pretty smooth, just like that. And now let's take a listen and see how this moves along with the curves. Cool. Now I do want to make this a little bit more interesting, so I'm going to pull up an instance of multipass quickly and grab a chorus. Don't worry about following along, this is just showing you some examples about how I like to process basses and stuff, but we can do that. We can also grab a flanger, and then I'm going to grab a dynamics here and just push that up a bit. Now I'm going to grab another LFO table here just for funsies, maybe somewhere around here, and I'm going to transition this between this here and then maybe even grab a macro that I can map to this. And what's also awesome is I can map this same macro to this one here if I want to change the shape of that wavetable. Let's go ahead and give this a little bit more detuning, maybe like 72, so that way this will react a little bit faster. And suddenly, you know, it could always use more processing and stuff, but you can kind of see how crazy this can get and how quickly you can do something like this. And I would actually argue that this is a very basic patch, but even still with getting into stuff that I've done before, say in the Eternum series or whatever, this is the same wavetable that I've used from before, but with all of this complex modulation that we have between the wavetables and multipass and all that, we can get stuff that's pretty amazing, kind of like so. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, the reason why this matters to me so much is because, for one, it's a new modulation type of shape, but the thing that is also worth considering is that typically speaking, you don't get a lot of saw shapes within the randomization. Like if you kind of have something between smooth and I guess not smooth, then you can kind of get some stuff that's like that. But what I like about this is that you are forcing the randomization to stay in between what is happening here. So that means that no matter how random this is in particular, it's going to be mapped to a specific dedicated shape. And because that shape can morph, whether it be over time or whether you choose to do it yourself, it means that you can kind of flip between something that's completely random and something that's a little bit more tangible. So for doing like downbeat basses and stuff, as you heard whenever the random part was generated, sometimes if you hit it at the right note, you'll see that this is actually going to be more of like a bass pluck. That was a great example. So something like that. And whenever you are doing resampling and cuts and all that, it's a lot more variation that you're going to get out of your sound. So this is kind of an advanced sound design tutorial by all means, but for the sake of understanding how deep the rabbit hole gets with something like this, even though everything is at your fingertips, I really hope that you guys take this as inspiration and explore and really get comfortable with using the LFO tables just as much as you do with the wavetables, because now they go hand in hand, just like how if you design a snap heap or multipass preset, you can pull it back and use it either on other synths or VSTs rather, or whatever, or you can use it inside of another snap heap or multipass rack. So Faceplant is awesome, man, and I can give you so many reasons why, but let me know your thoughts. Do you guys use the LFO table for anything? I'll probably cover the curve in a future, I guess, video or whatever, but as a quick reminder, I have an affiliate link in the description, and currently Faceplant is on sale. So if you consider picking it up, demo it, even just, get like the $10 a month thing, see if it's for you. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. But I'm telling you guys, this synth is a must own. That's all I got for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.